at the forefront of politics.
Our enemy is Trump. He is the enemy. We got to unite. If we're not a united party, we lose to Trump.
On the front lines of activism.
There's certain fights, if we don't engage, they win. This is a fundamental question of who we are.
And delivering your daily dose of comedy.
Donald Trump, when he had his physical, they had his blood pressure, and mine is higher than his. Oh. And the irony is mine is higher because of him.
From the blue wave.
We flipped. Enough seats to take control of the House. We control the House.
To 2020 and beyond. This is the Dean Obeidallah Show on Sirius XM Progress, Channel 127.
And welcome to the show, brothers and sisters of the Resistance. Wednesday, May 29th. I'm Dean Obeidallah, hoping to be your MBFF. And obviously, the big story, without any doubt whatsoever, a big surprise. Robert Mueller, unexpected to any of us, alerted the media earlier this morning he's going to go make a statement, which he did at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. And we'll go through the clips. We'll discuss it. I want to hear your view. I really want to hear from the progressive base on this and your reaction to what you heard. Did it change your opinion one way or the other? I'll play responses, Speaker Pelosi and others. But let me give you my top line. Robert Mueller, in 9 minutes, destroyed Donald Trump's claim that the Russian hack was a hoax and that Trump was exonerated. Robert Mueller could have simply came out and said, no collusion, no obstruction. He could have said that. He literally could have just walked down and go, just want to say no collusion, no obstruction. He did not do that. Of course he did not. Instead, Robert Mueller reminded us that the Russians attacked our election in 2016 to hurt Hillary and help Donald Trump, and then made it extremely clear with a line that I think will be famous in history. He stated, if we had confidence that the president did not commit a crime, we would have said so. It cannot be more clear. So let's play some of the clips and then we're going to talk about it on the other side. Here's first Robert, and I think this is so important. I think volume 1 of the report, and everyone knows the Mueller report's broken down to 2 volumes. Volume 1 is about Russia, its attack on our election, and the response of the Trump administration and the interaction. Number 2 is obstruction. I think number 1 is vitally important to understand. While Donald Trump may not have violated the law because he did not find sufficient evidence of a criminal conspiracy, there is no doubt that Donald Trump accepted the help, wanted the help of Russia, and Russia wanted Donald Trump to win. So Robert Mueller here wants to refocus America on how serious the attack was on our election in 2016. This, again, was a military attack by the GRU unit of Russian military directed by Vladimir Putin, an attack on our nation. This was an act of war. This was an act of war. I'm not saying a hot war we're going to battle, but a war nonetheless, an attack on our integrity, our sovereignty, our sacred election. So here's clip number 1, Robert Mueller.
Interference in the 2016 presidential election. As alleged by the grand jury in an indictment, Russian intelligence officers who were part of the Russian military launched a concerted attack on our political system. The indictment alleges that they used sophisticated cyber techniques to hack into computers and networks used by the Clinton campaign. They stole private information and then released that information through fake online identities and through the organization WikiLeaks. The releases were designed and timed to interfere with our election and to damage a presidential candidate. And at the same time, as the grand jury alleged in a separate indictment, a private Russian entity engaged in a social media operation where Russian citizens posed as Americans in order to influence an election.
So very clearly, he just wants to remind America that the Russians attacked us for a specific reason. They wanted to help Donald Trump. They wanted to hurt Hillary Clinton. And as I read yesterday from the Mueller report, quote, the investigation established that the Russian government perceived it would benefit from a Trump presidency and worked to secure that outcome, and that the Trump campaign expected it would benefit electorally from information stolen and released through Russian efforts. Donald Trump accepted the help. He knew what was going on. They were meeting with Russians. He was calling for their help. Robert Mueller simply wanted us to remind us of that. Then second, Robert Mueller went on first before he got into the obstruction part of Volume 2. He wanted to remind people why obstruction is not just a process crime, as they dismiss on Fox News. Why it matters the integrity of our entire criminal justice system. Because if obstruction of justice is allowed, we will never find the truth. Wrongdoers will never be held accountable. So here's clip number 2, Robert Mueller.
That is also a reason we investigated efforts to obstruct the investigation. The matters we investigated were of paramount importance. It was critical for us to obtain full and accurate information from every person we questioned. When a subject of an investigation obstructs that investigation or lies to investigators, it strikes at the core of the government's effort to find the truth and hold wrongdoers accountable.
Exactly. You cannot hold wrongdoers accountable. Hence, the entire system means nothing. The entire criminal justice system is rendered neutered if you do not enforce obstruction of justice charges against anyone. Then Robert Mueller made the statement that is the one that gets all the press, and he makes it very clear that they did not come to a conclusion to charge Donald Trump, a sitting president, because they were not allowed to by Department of Justice regulations. But again, listen very carefully. If we had the confidence that the president did not commit a crime, we would have said so. Here's clip number 3.
As set forth in the report after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so. We did not, however, make a determination as to whether the president did commit a crime. The introduction to the Volume 2 of our report explains that decision. It explains that under long-standing department policy, a president cannot be charged with a federal crime while he is in office. That is unconstitutional. Even if the charge is kept under seal and hidden from public view, that too is prohibited. The special counsel's office is part of the Department of Justice, and by regulation, it was bound by that department policy. Charging the president with a crime was therefore not an option we could consider.
He could not be more clear. And we've discussed in the past, I wrote about it for the Daily Beast. If you're interested, I wrote about it months ago. I reshared it on Twitter and on Facebook at facebook.com/DeanOfRadio. The 2 DOJ memos that say you cannot charge a sitting president, I completely disagree with those. And I go through why. I'm not just saying because for political reasons. I'm saying that the premise of our criminal justice system is that no one's above the law. Well, by saying a sitting president cannot be charged for crimes, including walking on Fifth Avenue and shooting someone, saying you can't charge him, you are saying that person is above the law, and that should not be allowed in our system. No one should be allowed to do that. And I don't subscribe to the view that it's okay later to charge them when they leave office. No, you can't do that. Someone commits a crime, they get charged when you have the evidence. And if you look at the 2 DOJ memos, they're fine. They're well written. I can see their points. I disagree with their points, and now more people are as well. But here, let me just play this. These 10, 12 words are the key words from the entire Robert Mueller press conference. Here's clip number 4.
As set forth in the report after that investigation, if we had had confidence that the president clearly did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
So it could not be more clear. If they had confidence, if they went through everything like they did for Volume 1, because in Volume 1, to remind you, they said they did not find evidence that Donald Trump or the Trump campaign had, they didn't use the term collude, but had conspired with the Russians. But for obstruction, he cannot find that. In fact, he found 10 different episodes that he identified that potentially could have been crimes. So there's a lot more going on. What was the reaction of Trump? Well, Trump himself tweeted, "Nothing changes from the Mueller report. There was insufficient evidence, and therefore in our country, a person is innocent. The case is closed. Thank you." Look, when your best defense is just declaring you're innocent, you've lost. Trump is guilty. We know he's guilty. Polls show that. Rudy Giuliani took it to a new level, really freaked out, literally saying that Robert Mueller was invoking like Soviet Union philosophy on how to prosecute someone, and actually attacked Mueller's character, saying, quote, "He's lost his notion of American fairness." The idea of saying his American fairness, somehow saying that Robert Mueller, a veteran of the U.S. Marine Corps, who serves as FBI director and U.S. attorney, is not a patriotic American, is despicable. This is the violence. This is part of the cancer of Trumpism. It is a cancer. And what I like is that you have certain people in the world of Trump who are formerly part of it and now have walked away from it. Bret Baier on Fox News said this is bad for Trump. Here's Judge Napolitano, which is probably the clip that people are playing on Fox Business, just making it very clear how horrible this is for Donald Trump. Here's clip number 6, please.
If we had confidence the president did not commit a crime, we would have said so. That is in the Mueller report. And
if we had confidence the president did not commit a crime, we would have said so.
I could
that
not,
opened the door.
I could not agree with Lizzie any more than I do. That opens the door for the Democrats to pounce. Effectively, what Bob Mueller said is, we had evidence that he committed a crime, but we couldn't charge him because he's the president of the United States. This is even stronger than the language in his report. This is also a parting shot at his soon-to-be former boss, the Attorney General, because this statement is 180 degrees from the 4-page statement that Bill Barr issued at the time he first saw the report.
Is it that bad?
I think so. I think basically he's saying the president can't be indicted, otherwise we would have indicted him, and we're not going to charge him with a crime because there's no forum in which for him to refute the charges. But we could not say that he didn't commit a crime, fill in the blank, because we believe he did.
And then Robert Mueller, and I'll play a really short clip where he said what the right forum is. And he's being very subtle here. But listen carefully. Here's clip number 5.
The opinion says that the Constitution requires a process other than the criminal justice system to formally accuse a sitting president of wrongdoing.
And what is that other forum? It's impeachment, of course. It's Congress. And there was Judge Napolitano saying Democrats are going to pounce now. So did they pounce? Well, some 2020 Democrats did. Cory Booker, who has not come out before for impeachment, now has come out in favor of impeachment. Julian Castro said impeachment inquiry should begin immediately. That Mueller made it clear this morning. His investigation now lays at the feet of Congress. Beto O'Rourke said there must be consequences, accountability, and justice. Liz Warren already called for it. Senator Harris already called for impeachment. So you're having more and more of the leading Democrats running for president saying it. Joe Biden said today, no, wait and see. He's following the Nancy Pelosi approach. And let me play what Nancy Pelosi, she put out a statement, which was some interesting words. But I'd rather play for you her exact words. It's cut together a little, but I assure you it's all in context. Here's Nancy Pelosi at an event in San Francisco this afternoon. Asked about it. Here's clip number 13, please.
Nothing is off the table, but we do want to make such a compelling case, such an ironclad case that even the Republican Senate, which at the time seems to be not an objective jury, will be convinced of the path that we have to take as a country. I'm very proud of our House Democrats. They've been very, shall we say, conscientious about how they've reached their decisions, and I think it's like 35 of them out of 238, or maybe it's 38 of them out of 238 have said that they wanted to be outspoken on impeachment, and many of them are reflecting their views as well as those of their constituents. Many constituents want to impeach the president, but we want to do what is right and what gets results. And we have to remember, so yes, there are some, and the press makes more of a fuss about the 38 than the 200.
I'm not sure if Speaker Pelosi was trying to be dismissive of the Democratic base. I say that in all sincerity. I'm not being sarcastic about that. I don't know. Because she said only 38 Democrats want impeachment out of 238. That's correct. But polls show between 62 and 70% of the Democratic base want an impeachment inquiry to begin. So was she dismissing us as well? I'm hoping not. I think maybe the way she looks at things is through the lens of people in her caucus. She is the speaker, so I get that. But it does trouble me that she's only focused on 38 and not on the 65 to 70% of us, the grassroots, the people who elected her, got her to be the Speaker of the House because we elected Democrats around this country. Because I can assure you, if 65 to 70% of the GOP base wanted something, the leadership would not be dismissive. They would listen to them. They'd be pushing for what they want. But instead, we're being held back here. And then Gerald Nadler, who's very important. He's chair of Judiciary Committee. And why that's so important is that's where the impeachment inquiry would begin, in Judiciary. So here's Gerald Nadler. He had a press conference this afternoon, said some strong things, but when it got to, are you ready for an impeachment? Not so much. Let's go to shorter clip number 8.
Make no mistake, no one, not even the President of the United States, is above the law.
Congressman, will you move then forward with impeachment proceedings? And given what Mueller has said, meaning that he feels as though the report says all that he needs to say, will you then subpoena him to testify in front of Congress?
With respect to impeachment question, at this point, all options are on the table, and nothing should be ruled out.
So we got this remarkable thing from Robert Mueller today, who made it very, very clear that they cannot charge Donald Trump because they were not allowed to. That they did not exonerate Donald Trump because the evidence did not allow them to do that. And they didn't have the proper form to charge Trump, but there is a proper form, and that is Congress. And we are seeing no movement right now from the House members. And Speaker Pelosi saying, I want to build a consensus among Republicans in the Senate, and she said that before, is horribly wrong. And I say that not just from a political point of view. I say that first from a constitutional point of view. As a lawyer, let me just make my little case here. Article 1, Section 2 of the Constitution says, the House of Representatives shall choose their speaker and it shall have the sole power of impeachment. Article 1, Section 2. The only body in our government that can impeach or charge someone is the House. Then, it says in Section 3 of that article, the Senate will have a trial. Nowhere in Article 1, Section 2 does it say the House shall have the power to impeach, but shall only invoke that power if they think they can get a win in the Senate. That's not what the framers intended. They wanted this to be a check. Historians have said the House brings impeachment charges against federal officials as part of its oversight and investigatory responsibilities. It is part of their job. Impeachment is simply charging somebody. Then they have their day in court. And I went back and looked at some of the debate of the founders of and the framers of the Constitution. There was Rufus King from Massachusetts who argued that we should not have impeachment. We should let the voters decide if someone's corrupt or not, and don't even put impeachment in there. And the others pushed back, said no. In fact, Massachusetts Elbridge Gerry said no. Impeachment's a way to keep the executive in check, saying, quote, a good magistrate will not fear impeachments. A bad one ought to be kept in fear of them. Alexander Hamilton said in the Federal 65, impeachment is part of holding the misconduct of public men in check. He said in his words, from the abuse or violation of some public trust. And what makes this even worse and more painful to me is that Republican Justin Amash is out there at a town hall last night calling for impeachment, yet our own House Democratic leadership is not doing that. There is something so effed up when a Republican is calling for impeachment of a Republican president and the House Democratic leadership is not. Yet 62 to 70% of the Democratic base is saying it. And just so people understand historically, the House hasn't started impeachment proceedings more than 60 times. Less than a third resulted in full impeachments of anyone, meaning you start the impeachment inquiry as a normal part of your process of investigating for someone who's a federal officer, be president, vice president, federal judge, for potential wrongdoing. It does not mean when you start an impeachment hearing, you're going to draft articles of impeachment. But they do have more powers if they do it as formal impeachment inquiry. Second of all, this is ridiculous. I'm trying not to get angry again at what we're watching from our Democratic leadership. All of us work so hard to get control of the House. And Democrats in the swing districts, the ones that Nancy Pelosi is trying to protect, at least two of them so far are in favor of this. Tom Melankowski from New Jersey and Harley Rhoda, who's been on the show a lot, from California. Why? Because they were elected on issues of policy, but also the promise on holding Donald Trump accountable. So in these swing districts, they voted for a Democrat. They knocked out a Republican because they wanted someone to go to Congress to no longer be Paul Ryan and the welcome mat for Donald Trump. They wanted someone to go to Congress to stand up to Donald Trump. And here is your time. And now Robert Mueller's again brought it to the attention of the American people. Here is your time. A lifelong Republican, Robert Mueller, has said there's evidence there that I could not charge him, but there's another place that can. And that's you, Congress, to do your job. And doing your job means starting an impeachment inquiry. Congress is out this week. Next week when they go back, if they do not start an impeachment inquiry, I'm not advocating, but I'm predicting that we will see rebellion among the Democratic base, the progressive base that we haven't seen before. And what I mean by that, more likely, Democrats having town halls and being yelled at by fellow Democrats in the audience like Republicans were when they were trying to take away our health care with the ACA. I think you're going to see this bubble over because too many people have worked too hard to elect people to hold Trump accountable. And here you are, Robert Mueller. He did not have to have this press conference. He did this to make it clear that Bill Barr lied to us, to make it clear that there was not exoneration, to make it clear Donald Trump accepted help of Russia. And Congress, do your job. And they've got to do it. Because what have we worked for? This is no different right now than the Republicans if Paul Ryan was in charge, except we are doing investigations in various committees, and that is great, and that is different. I'm not making light of that. You've had over a month now. You're going to court. You're litigating these issues. They're going to be briefed. They're expedited now to get Trump's Mazar financial records from Mazar, his tax returns. You know what expedited is? Full briefing is due by July. That's expedited. I'm not kidding. July. We might get answers in August. Maybe another appeal after that. Maybe in the middle of the fall. But here's the intangible of all of this before we take a quick break. And we're going to have Congressman Jamie Raskin for like 5 minutes. He's on the House Judiciary Committee. He's already in favor of impeachment. He's literally going to join us for 5 minutes, and we're going to take your calls. Think about if we did impeachment inquiry over the next 7 to 8 months, and then I think they'd vote for articles of impeachment, then we have the trial. We control the narrative for the next year. Donald Trump doesn't control the narrative. He's on the defensive for the next year. And for Democrats to go, well, the 2020 Democrats don't want to be big-footed by this issue. It's too bad. This is the issue. Holding Trump accountable for his crimes. Forget politics. You're charged by the Constitution to do this. So I don't want to go too long because we're going to have Congressman Raskin. Let's take a quick break. He's literally got 5 minutes for us. Then we're going to take calls. So don't go away. You're going to be on 866-997-4748. I really want to hear from the progressive base. Is your view changed at all by Mueller? Are you more worked up? Are you fine with Pelosi now? Do you want a longer-term strategy? I respect all your views. I want to hear from you. You know my views. Let's take a break.
The Dean Obeidallah Show.
Voting is the most important civil right of our era because the right to vote preserves all other